Mr. Chair, council members, and participants, we are now live.
Good morning, general public, and good morning, colleagues. Welcome to the meeting on the Committee of Public Property and Public Works. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. Our clerk is Mr. Brazel. Would you please call the roll and take attendance? Members that are in attendance, will you please indicate that you are present when your name is called? Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will display on the screen when you speak. Mr. Brazel.
Councilmember Mark Squilla. Councilmember Jamie Gautier.
I'm sorry, President. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Helen Gim.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to our city agencies and team.
Good morning.
I'm present.
Councilmember David O. Councilmember Alan Don.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and colleagues, and I am present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Curtis Jones Jr.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Philadelphia.
Good morning.
And that's back to you, Chairman Haney.
And I am present. So I want to thank you all. A quorum of the committee is present. This hearing is now called to order. This is a public hearing of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works regarding bill numbers 200-662, 200-677, 210076, 210248, 210281, 210282, 210293, 210418, 210419, 210424, 210444, and 210450. Mr. Brazel, would you please read the titles of the bills?
Bill number 200662, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into a sublease agreement with the Philadelphia Municipal Authority for use by the city of a portion of the premises located at 11311 Roosevelt Boulevard, Philadelphia, PA, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 200677, authorizing the Department of Public Property to acquire on behalf of the city an easement in the area bounded by Chestnut Street, 12th Street, Market Street, and 11th Street, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 210076, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the city to convey to the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development a parcel of land situated at 2401 Chestnut Street for further conveyance, and authorizing the plotting upon City Plan number 307 a right-of-way for bridge repair, maintenance, and/or reconstruction purposes, and for stormwater, sewer, and drainage purposes, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 210079, authorizing the Philadelphia Municipal Authority and the Philadelphia Gas Works by Philadelphia Facilities Management Corporation, solely in its capacity as operator and manager of the city-owned Philadelphia Gas Works, to enter into certain transactions and contracts regarding the lease and license of portions of the premises located at 5000 Somerdale Avenue and 5501 Whitaker Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for the use of the Philadelphia Gas Works, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 210248, Authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into a lease agreement with St. Agnes MOB LLC for the use by the city of a portion of the premises located at 1930 South Broad Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 210281, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to acquire fee simple title or lesser real estate interest from Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to all or a portion of parcels of land bordered by Richmond Street to the northwest, Wheat Shift to the northeast, I-95 to the west and north, and the northeast treatment plant to the southeast for water treatment or supply or other purposes under certain terms and conditions. Bill 210282, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the city to acquire fee simple title or a lesser interest in real estate by purchase, dedication, donation, condemnation, agreement in lieu of condemnation, or otherwise in parcels of land along the Delaware River and the Tacony-Holmesburg section of the Delaware River Trail, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 210293, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into a sublease agreement with Chestnut Street Realty Limited Partnership, LP, for use by the City of a portion of the premises located at 1327 to 29 Chestnut Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 210418, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to convey to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania all or a portion of a parcel or parcels of land in and about their area bounded by Kingston Street, I-95, East Venango Street, and Bass Street, under certain terms and conditions. Bill 210419, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to grant to the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation a temporary construction easement on a portion of the parcel or parcels of land in and about the area bounded by Richmond Street, East Butler Street, I-95, and Castor Avenue, commonly known as 3721 Richmond Street, under certain terms and conditions. Bill 210424, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into a sublease agreement with the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development for use by the city of a portion of the premises located at 1101 Market Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by the city, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 210444, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the city to acquire fee simple title or a lesser interest in real estate by purchase, dedication, donation, condemnation, agreement in lieu and condemnation, or otherwise, in parcels of land connecting Tacony Street to the Frankfurt Arsenal boat launch for personal recreational purposes under certain terms and conditions. And finally, Bill 210450, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into an amendment to a lease agreement with the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, otherwise known as SEPTA, for use by the city of a portion of the premises located at 1234 Market Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by the city, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Clerk. Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses that we have for today, everyone who has been invited to this meeting to testify should be aware that this is a public hearing, and this hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in this meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for questions or comments they have for witnesses, I will note for the record at this time we will use the chat feature that is available on Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Before we call the witnesses, would any of my colleagues like to make any opening remarks on any of the ordinances being heard here today? Additionally, I want to note, due to a scheduling conflict, our first witness, or I'm not going to read all that. All right. Our first witness is going to be Commissioner Bridget Collins Greenwald, who was our public property commissioner. We have 6 bills that the commissioner is giving testimony for. So I'm going to ask Commissioner Collins to please state your name for the record and mention the title of the bill and begin your testimony. After each bill, we will open it up for questions, but you will be given testimony on each of your bills in the order as they appear. So, Commissioner Greenwald, state your name for the record, and you may begin testimony on bill number 200662.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. This is Bridget Collins Greenwald, Commissioner of Public Property. So, good morning, Chair, Member Heenan, and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property. I'm here to testify in favor of bill number 200662, authorizing the Department of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into a lease with Covington Property Partners, LLC, for the entire premises located at 11311 Roosevelt Boulevard under certain terms and conditions. With me today is Commissioner Lisa Deely, Chair of the Philadelphia City Commissioners, who was responsible for overseeing a very successful November general election in 2022, as well as the most recent primary election 2 weeks ago. Commissioner Deely is here to answer any specific voting or warehouse use questions you may have. In response to the Commonwealth's request for all Pennsylvania counties to acquire new voting systems, the Office of the Philadelphia City Commissioners acquired a new fleet of 3,750 voting machines. The new machines provided an upgrade in technology, which include a full-face voting surface on a 32-inch HD interactive screen. With the upgrade in technology, it became apparent that the space required to store the machines would also need to change. Based on the vendor's guidelines, the storage space requirements include a functioning air conditioning system, a dust-controlled environment, and enough electrical power that all 3,750 machines can be plugged in and operating at the same time. The Department of Public Property began working with the Office of the Philadelphia City Commissioners on numerous test fits to determine the best possible space layout from an operations standpoint. After fully understanding the new space requirements and the space layout needed, City Commissioners and DPP determined 11311 Roosevelt Boulevard is an ideal property to store, maintain, and distribute the new voting machines long-term. Uncommon in the warehouse market, 11311 Roosevelt Boulevard offered a fully functioning air conditioning system already in place. The property also offered an existing electrical service with more power than the machines require. In order to create a dust-free environment, the landlord sealed the concrete floor with a chemically reactive liquid hardener and densifier. With the majority of the space requirements already fulfilled and the ability of the landlord to deliver the space turnkey, 11311 Roosevelt Boulevard was selected to house the new machines long-term. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill number 200662. I'm requesting a suspension of all rules to allow for the first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. Commissioner Deely and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony, Commissioner. I have a few questions, and I'm going to go through the chair or through you, Commissioner, to the chair of our City Commissioners, Commissioner or Chairwoman Lisa Deely.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here, as well as your staff on the line. So there's a couple things with this ordinance. One, it is being amended here today. So can you discuss the need for the warehouse and why? Can you explain to the general public and just remind the members of this committee? We have all these new machines We have the need for space, but we were given a lot of resources and much needed equipment last year that would need some storage space. So can you talk about that? Can you talk about how long you were looking for space and then discuss some of the terms?
Thank you. So we had been looking for a new warehouse along with public property for over 2 years. Over that time, there was never one that worked. Either it would cost too much to upgrade, or the ceilings were too high, and it would cost too much to climate control, or there was not enough space. During that time, the new voting machines were stored in 3 different spaces at 2 different locations. That was a major headache for us, quite honestly, and it provided us with a great challenge. And the space that we were in left much to be desired. So we were happy to receive, to be able to be in this new space that provided us not only the space that we needed, but also additional space that we were fortunate, as council members know, we were fortunate to receive a grant in the in the general election, and that equipment that we were able to purchase, the mail ballot equipment, can also now be stored in the new warehouse. So there is no longer an issue with the space we need for the additional equipment. We do not have to rent a new warehouse to store the $5 million of new equipment and to effectively use it. So this space really, it offered us not only an opportunity to properly and effectively and efficiently store our voting systems, it also allowed us the space we needed to do our new mail-in voting system, with the ability to also include the ballot processing center along with the voting systems in the same space.
And I think that it's real important that the public understand that the consolidation of the machines at 3 different locations and the long-term stability and predictability of the new equipment is efficient. I think when it comes to our public dollars. Can you talk real quick about the long-term savings when it comes to the mailing equipment and the efficiency of your sorters? As I would imagine, you expect the more people get comfortable with mail-in ballots, the more mail-in ballots you will be receiving.
Right. So there is no longer an issue for us to have to rent space or move space. Now that we're able to get this space, we are able to continue to count the ballots as we did in November, and there was no need for us to scale back our counting operation, starting with the controller DA primary last week. While the cost, it is certainly significantly cheaper than to rent temporary space every 6 months to run the counting operation. And as we move forward, we'll be able to print and mail all from that one location, saving also on printing costs and postage costs.
And I think that is important to be noted for the record. So thank you. Chair recognizes Councilmember Jones. Councilman Jones? Chair recognizes Councilmember.
Sorry,
Councilman Jones.
Mr. Chairman, sorry
Yes,
about
sir.
that. First and foremost, thank you again for that successful November election. So I heard, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your questions, because it answered some of mine. So we have a consolidated space that not only accommodates the machines, but the mail-in process. Is that what you're going to need going forward?
Yes, Councilman, this space, it was very fortuitous that we were able to get space that we were able to grow into so rapidly to now do both the mail and processing center and the ballot processing center and the voting machines. We were able to recreate what we had in the convention center immediately for the next election. So it really worked out well for us.
So you now will have City Hall, Spring Garden, and this new Boulevard space.
Yes, Councilman.
We anticipate the kind of volume that we had during the Biden race coming up in the midterms. You are teed up for all of that as well?
We are, well, as you know, Councilman, we are awaiting a budget. We have a budget request into council in order to be fully prepared for that election, which we agree will be as busy, if not more, than the presidential general election. We should note that it's the governor and the U.S. Senate, and also we have local races. So we do anticipate that election to be, full throttle, and we will need to be fully funded, quite honestly, to be able to pull it off.
Do you anticipate the same or greater use of mail-in?
Quite honestly, it's hard to say because there is really no data for us to draw from. But obviously, the more money that is spent in campaigns for elections, the more interest there is. So, with that in mind, yes, I would foresee that we will see a greater, if not equal, then a greater use of the mail-in ballot next year.
Mr. Chairman, I just heard a newscast citing false information about fake elections through foreign agents that are sending these emails. So we're going to have as much confusion, if not more, in the upcoming elections. And I'm glad that we're taking a preemptive reorganization and readiness to deal with upcoming elections. So I'm glad you had this hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council Member, and we certainly appreciate our Chairwoman Deely attending here to speak and answer any questions and all questions regarding the future and long ball sustainability when it comes to our elections and the integrity of it and the safety of it and the accessibility of our equipment and processes. So I appreciate that. I know Council Member Dom has a few questions. He is experiencing a little technical difficulty. If I may ask Chairwoman Deely to stay in the meeting for just a little longer. Council Member Dom, if you can just message at any time when you think
me, Mr. Chair? Maybe it's working now.
It is. It's working perfectly.
Okay.
Chair recognizes Council Member Dom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. I have 2 or 3 questions, and I wanted to just ask what the rent would be on this space in the 16th year. I see what the rent is in the first year, but what is the rent in the 16th year?
Good morning, Councilman Dom. This is Bridget.
Morning, Bridget.
I think I'm having a little hard time hearing you. I think you asked what would the rent possibly be in the 16th year?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay. So for year 16, we are at $9.70 a square foot.
How much would the annual rent be?
So the annual rent would be, hold on one second, $2.2 million.
Wow. And I guess my question then is to the total rent we're paying in this lease or we're committing to is how much?
So the total that we're committing to for this year,
over 16 years, the 16-year commitment of rental payments, how much would that be?
I do not have that right off the top of my head. I would have to get back to you on the total for that.
Okay. And
Well, look, Commissioner, this is Bobby Heenan. We have some tech staff that is and or deputies that are with Commissioner Dealey. I'm sure they can, get out their calculator. If you can, start working on that during this hearing, that and we can this way we can report it back to Councilmember Dom. I mean, we do have the chart, so I think we can figure it out.
And then, Commissioner, I have a question. Is JLL one of the consultants on this call?
JLL was not involved in this lease. Concordis was, so we do have the broker, Brian Edmonds, who is the owner of that company, on the call.
So he's the broker for the owner or our representative?
For us.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm just going to ask a direct question. Is his compensation on a consulting fee or on a percentage of the lease deal?
The lease deal.
Percentage of the lease. So my question is, if this property wasn't leased, what is its value in the market? And what is OPA's value on the property?
I don't know, Brian, do you have that information? I do not have it right in front of me.
Brian, you can state your name for the record and
Sure. Sure.
jumping into
Yep.
this.
I'm Brian Edmonds, principal, founder of the Concordis Group, retained by the city via an RFP process probably 2 years ago, and was the broker representing the city on this transaction, along with my colleague Tommy Choi. I'm going to ask Tommy to jump on in a second because I believe we can answer the question with regards to the total rent for the councilman. But Councilman, can you state your question once more in terms of the value of the property?
Yes, if there was a warehouse for 216,000 square feet, this location, what do you think the market value is if we were to purchase it versus rent it in today's condition without a tenant?
I'm not comfortable answering that question at this moment. I can, that wasn't part of our process necessarily. So we can certainly have a separate conversation, or I can do some additional research, but I'm not comfortable answering that question at this time.
Right. The reason I'm asking the question is so that I can make an intelligent analysis of the total rent we're paying versus the potential of a purchase if that was available. Because it sounds to me like we're going to be paying a lot of rent. And then my next question, Brian, maybe you could answer, because we're in a world of technology that changes by the day. If we were to terminate this lease in 5 years because our process of voting changed, what are our rights to terminate the lease? And is there an ability to terminate? And what is the cost to terminate?
Right. Well, you got me. I don't believe we have an ability to terminate this lease. And actually, I'm going to ask my colleague, who's probably a little more up on all of, he'll answer the question about the rent as well. But Tommy, can you jump on for a minute?
Sure. Good morning, council members and commissioners and guests. My name is Tommy Choi. I am with SVN, the Concordis Group, and business practice partners of Brian Edmonds. Councilman Dom, to answer your first question in relations to the total lease consideration costs for years 1 through 16, the total cost would be $28.4 million for the entirety of the lease itself.
So just doing the math, is that averaging about 1.6 million a year, or is my math off on that?
You are.
I did that in my head, so I don't have a calculator handy, so you better check my numbers.
I am checking it right now. It's 1.7, roughly.
So 1.7. And so I guess my question, because you guys are representing us, I just want to point this out. I'm not saying we can change the situation now, but clearly 1.7 income guaranteed by the city of Philadelphia over a 16-year period, I would think, what would the cap rate be on a government entity investment? 4?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question here. I mean, we were not we were not charged with necessarily looking for a property to purchase. Councilman Dom, I mean, and as you know, the market for industrial properties is crazy. I mean, it's just a really hot market. I'll just give another quick example. I am the broker that was representing the Philadelphia Gas Works PGW, which I think is maybe on the agenda today as well. We had initially, I initially worked with PGW to purchase a site that they were looking for, and quite honestly, the market was just so robust, and there are investors out there all over the place trying to pick up property quickly, and quite frankly, their process is much more streamlined than our government process. And so, in today's market, I would just advise, in my opinion, it's very challenging to act quickly to purchase some of these industrial properties. We were fortunate here that this property actually, when we found it, was a distressed property. We were looking to lease it, not purchase it at the time. And so the timing, as Commissioner Dilly had mentioned, was great for us, because the owner, who I think may be on the call today, but picked it up, I believe, at a bit of a discount, and we were able to leverage that into negotiating what I think is a very aggressive deal, particularly in the early years. We had a very limited budget to work with as relates to last year, and so we got a ton of free rent in those early years, and I think we got a fair deal overall. And I would argue that if you look at the rent over time and you look at comparable buildings in the Philadelphia market, this stands as an exceptional deal, I believe. So that's my opinion.
Hey, Brian, what was the property purchased for?
The value?
Yeah, when you said the owner picked up the property at a good price, what was the price?
I don't have that at my fingertips. It was a while ago, so I don't remember. Councilman Dom, I can certainly find it.
Excuse me, Councilman Dom, Tommy Choi of SVN, weighing in again. From a public record standpoint, the Covington Group purchased this distressed property for a value of $12.5 million back in October of 2020.
I'm just going to tell you that in the market today, it's my opinion, you can disagree with me. Even if we raise this to a 5 cap, this property could be worth somewhere between 30 and 35 million by us engaging in a lease with the credit of the city of Philadelphia. And my only point here is to say to all of you, we need to rethink smarter on how we spend this money, and we also need to think down the road in 10, 15 years what we're committing the city to. But so last year, the rent's $2.2 million. And then the other piece is, I am concerned that with technology changing this quickly, we may change in 5 or 10 years our voting machine process. We may have different systems. We may be using it on our iPhones. Then what do we do with this lease?
Well, I would respond to that, Councilman. I think that the industrial market, unless it changes, and it can well change over time, everything changes over time, but with the industrial market being the way it is, I would argue that if it stays as hot as it is, I mean, we have subleasing rights. So it's a value asset. It's on a great corridor. So I think the risk, albeit, you can find risk there potentially, but I think it's minimal, just based on the asset and based on the way the industrial market has been so robust.
What is the cost of the improvements to the space to bring it to a level that we can rent it?
Well, we're already in the space. We committed to a 1-year lease as of last year, and so the work has already been completed.
So how much was spent on the tenant improvements?
I don't have that number available. I mean, we negotiated a turnkey deal. We essentially, obviously working with Councilperson Dealey, or Commissioner Dealey, I should say, identified what was needed and negotiated that as part of a turnkey deal. So I don't have the number that the landlord spent per se. We were, quite frankly, very, very much focused. Obviously, we wanted the facility to be delivered in the condition it needed to be for the voting machines, but also, again, we were fighting uphill with regards to some of the limitations we were given, particularly in the early years of the lease. So I think we were able to negotiate 8 months of free rent or so on this to accommodate that. So Not taking I'm not trying to detract from talking about the dollars that were committed for the improvements, but we were fortunate enough, and Commissioner Greenwald said earlier that some of the infrastructure that was already existing in this facility, which was a former purchasing facility, was there, and so we could take advantage of that. So it wasn't necessarily for us at the time about the value that the landlord spent, more so than ultimately what we were getting and making sure that the lease structure was something that the city budget could accommodate.
Right. I guess what I'm looking at is that this is a $28 million rental commitment over 16 years with no out other than to sublet, which means we're responsible unless we can find another tenant to take over the exorbitant payments that will. I'm concerned about that. I would like to see an out, a termination option.
Well, a termination option would be challenging, quite honestly. With all due respect, Councilman, I think again the market is concessions, as you know, is driven by the market, and the reality is we looked at many other properties, as Commissioner Dilly had mentioned, and folks, that was being snatched up all over the place, and so we can't change the marketplace, we can only adjust to it, and I will tell you that not many landlords, if any, are going to be entertaining a termination option when the person standing behind you to lease the space doesn't need one.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. I am concerned about it, and I'll think it over. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. Thank you.
Can I add something in real quick? This is Bridget. I think what wasn't mentioned too were the leases savings that we will have going forward. So we talked about Delaware and Spring Garden briefly. That lease, those savings will offset some of the costs of this as well. So I just wanted to make mention of that. The budget that was given that Brian just was referring to, the budget we were given by the budget office was to stay within the range of those two other warehouses that we talked about. So the warehouse on Scotts Lane and the warehouse on Wissahickon. So they were the constraints that were put on us when we were searching for a property to hit those rent numbers.
So, Commissioner, this is Bobby Heenan. If you could get something over to me, I could circulate to the members of council to answer some of the council member Dom's questions. I think, whenever you have a consolidation, and I know Brian had mentioned PGW as an example, and not necessarily in this hearing, but the other warehouse or space that was acquired right off of the boulevard, on south of the boulevard, where the old Sears used to be. And the consolidation process and savings is important to note for the record. So if you can kind of put a dollars in value of that over time for the consolidation savings, and deduct that from some of our annual rate. And I know it's a hot market right now, so I understand where Brian's coming from, and I certainly understand the due diligence from a fiduciary responsibility that Councilmember Dom always adds and kind of brings out in these hearings. So if you can get something to me, to the chair, and then I'll circulate it to members of this council, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Councilmember Dom, if you have any additional requests or anything that you want to add, before I open it up to other members of council and the general public here, please do so.
I have one or two other quick questions. Is this a triple net lease?
It is.
And is the city required to pay the real estate taxes, or are they exempt?
The city is required.
So the city right now has this assessed at $8 million. But when we do the valuation, it's worth a lot more money. I'm just putting it out there. I don't have any other further questions. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, council member. And again, please, you have some questions as the last few that you just mentioned, which are important to be answered. Please shoot me an email on that, and I will get them over to Commissioner of Public Property, and we'll get these questions answered and circulated to all members of council. Thank you for your question. Are there any other members of this committee wish to ask any questions on bill number 200662 and its amendment or its amendment? Any members of the public here that have joined us here today that have any additional questions or wish to have any comments on bill number 200662? Being none, I want to thank you all. Commissioner or Chairwoman Deely, if you could just hang around for a little bit longer in this process in case someone else joins us, we'd appreciate it, and thank you for your testimony. Commissioner Greenwald, would you please begin testimony on bill number 210076?
Sure. Good morning, Chair Member Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property, and I'm here to testify in favor of bill number 210076, authorizing the Department of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to convey to the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development a parcel of land situate at 2401 Chestnut Street for further conveyance, and authorizing the plotting upon City Plan number 307 a right-of-way for bridge repair, maintenance, and or reconstruction purposes, and for stormwater, sewer, and drainage purposes, all under certain terms and conditions. A previous 99-year lease granting occupancy expired on July 31st, 2019. The Department of Public Property entered into a license agreement with 2400 Marketing 7th LLP in order to accommodate the time required to negotiate the sale of a parcel of land located at 2401 Chestnut Street. After reviewing a handful of appraisals received by both parties and taking into consideration the amount the proposed buyer spent on relining a portion of the stormwater sewer line located within the property, the proposed buyer and seller agreed upon a purchase price in the amount of $473,356. The proposed agreement of sale will also include a right-of-way easement reserved for access to a stormwater sewer line and the Chestnut Street Bridge by the City of Philadelphia. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve bill number 210076. I'm requesting a suspension of all rules to allow for the first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any members of the committee wish to have any questions on bill number 210076? Anyone here from the general public or in this meeting wish to have any questions or comments on bill number 210076? That being said, thank you for your testimony, Commissioner. You may proceed with testimony on bill number 210248.
Sure. Good morning, Chair Member Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property, and I'm here to testify in favor of bill number 210248, authorizing the Department of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into a lease agreement with St. Agnes MOB LLC for a biosafety level 3, so BSL 3 lab and pharmacy space at 1930 South Broad Street, also known as Constitutional Health Plaza. With me today is Dan Guest, the Facilities Director of the Philadelphia Health Department, who can answer any specific use questions you may have. With the eventual conveyance of 500 South Broad, the Department of Public Property and the Philadelphia Department of Public Health have been concentrating on finding a location that would allow for the modernization and replacement of the existing public health laboratory. After months of developing the initial program and reviewing the design to make sure it meets the programmatic requirements, it was determined that Constitution Health Plaza has unique qualifications that only a premier medical facility can offer. The existing partnership between the City of Philadelphia and St. Agnes has been successful, and the opportunity to continue this partnership will be well received. Referred to as the new Health Center 1, the public health services already provided at this location include a walk-in family planning clinic, ambulatory health services, and food protection services. Upon completion of the construction phase, this proposed lease would give public health, the opportunity to utilize brand new state-of-the-art lab space at a premier medical facility over the next 3 decades. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill number 210248. I am requesting a suspension of all rules so as to allow for the first reading at the next session of council. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony, Commissioner. So I have a couple questions. What is the square feet again of this? Is that?
It's 23,476 for the pharmacy lab part, and then there's some storage on the ground floor, which is about 1,300.
And who was the principal of St. Agnes MOB LLC?
Steve Atlas.
I'm on also if needed.
Hello.
Hello.
Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I think you had mentioned Dan Geis for the facility director. Can you explain go over the use of the biosafety level 3 laboratory and pharmacy space, and who would it be serving?
Sure. This is Dan Guest with the Department of Public Health. Good morning to everyone. The biosafety level 3 is to address unknowns. It's a self-contained, it's going to be approximately 2,000 square feet, which in the 21st century with the bioterrorisms, with of course, the COVID pandemic that we just went through, will be an asset to the city, and it will be able to isolate any kind of unknown that comes in and be able to be tested and, of course, treated and not spread. It will be TB. There's going to be a couple of components to it. There's a TB test area. There's a rabies test area, and then there's also just some special contaminants as far as unknowns that will be happening in the future.
Oh, geez, that's a frightening look for the future with bioterrorism. Question, just to further that, quickly without raising any kind of public fear here, but where are you performing these tests now? I mean, the health department, when somebody onboards and they have to take a TB test, and obviously rabies is common. So where are all these? Are like how many scattered sites, and or are we testing for these and unknowns and or other kind of quarantine type of laboratory testing that's taking place? Is it in any city facilities, or are we contracting that out third party?
Currently, there is no ability as far as bioterrorism. We have a BSL2 plus facility at the 500 South Broad facility that can do TB testing, but other testing is not available. It would be provided by the state or by other agencies.
So is this a new directive from the health department when it comes to bioterrorism and unknowns, or has this adapted or changed over the last year and a half since the coronavirus pandemic?
This is a new directive. This is a 21st century things that the CDC and federal agencies would like to see us do. So it's going to enhance our abilities.
are we receiving any federal funds for this new directive and its implementation, its capital investment, and or any other kind of operational costs that we're investing in here?
Commissioner Greenwald, I don't know if you want to direct that, but I understand that it's from the sale of the current building that we are in.
So no, it's not. But it is that we are selling the current building, but this money is city general fund money. There's no federal money used.
All right. So it's all said. So there's no federal money. All right. There's no American Recovery Act. Resources. There's no state dollars. And where's the current building? I mean, is it the current building at 1930 South Broad Street that the city owns?
No, we own the building at 500 South Broad.
That's the
building that we sold.
Right. That was.
Or in the process of selling. I shouldn't say we sold it yet.
Okay. And what are the city's proceeds from that sale?
So that will be, I believe I want to say it's 15 million off the top of my head. I'd have to get back to you with the definite. I think that's what it was for 500 South Broad. So some of these proceeds would be, would offset this, obviously, but the timing might not be there. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And we're going to use the proceeds from this sale. We don't have available right now, because it's broken down, as I believe, as you said, you're going to use the proceeds in different ways, and this is going to be for the long-term lease of this property at 1930.
Yes. So early on we looked into purchasing this property, and it was going to be cost prohibitive. So we were looking in the $40 million range after leasing for about I think it was a 5-year lease, and then that was the purchase price. Knowing also, and that would have had the city on the hook for maintenance of this lab, which is, I don't know if you've ever been in the lab at 500 South Broad, but it's a fairly old building that the city's owned for a really long time, that lab space. So we needed to get out, and even in the face of the pandemic, we knew it even, we were faced with it even more, greater acknowledgement that we had to get out of that space. So looking at spaces in the area, looking at what it would take to build a lab and whatnot, we did talk about purchase. So we would have to cover the improvements, then a purchase price. So if we purchased.
What is the cost of it? So we're going to be building it out, right? So what is the cost for the build out and the lab and the equipment?
So that is actually still being worked out. There's a committee that meets weekly on the construction piece of this project, the design and construction. So there is no money, like there's no definitive amount yet, but we have asked budget to put a placeholder of $20 million in the budget.
Is that $20 million in FY22 budget or 23?
I think we asked for it in 22. I'd have to go back and check. I believe it was 22. Yes, it is 22, definitely.
All right, and could you provide to us, and I'm not expecting you to know that right offhand, but what is the construction timeline, equipment purchase time, and move-in date? Approximately, is it it's going to take a year and a half to build out and move people into this unknown use for the biosafety level 3 laboratory?
So from the date we get the permits, construction's anticipated to take 10 months. But as I said, there are the meetings that we're having weekly just to determine where we're at. So what we think now is upon permit in hand, it should take about 10 months.
And you would have to publicly bid that, and that would take a few months. So you're still talking a year and a half.
Well, we go through the landlord, so it's a little bit of a different process.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a much different process then.
yes. Hmm.
Okay. Chair recognizes Councilmember Dom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. I just have a few questions I wanted to ask on this, and that is the total rent for the lease is 29 and a half years, I believe.
I'm sorry, Councilman, I'm having a hard time. What was the question?
My question is, can you tell me what the total rent is for the 29 and a half year lease period?
Total, not, I can, God, I don't know why I didn't total this up. Okay, thank you. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't total this up.
If I can be helpful, it's Steve Atlas, I'm sorry. The total is about $22 million over 29 years.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have is, as Steve, you're the landlord here, what is the tenant improvement that you're contributing to this lease?
We're contributing in excess of $4 million or in excess of 20% of the lease.
Okay, that's good. And then what are the increases per year?
I don't have them in front of me. I believe they're 1 or 2%.
Per year, okay.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask.
Yes, that's correct. I have that. I have the detailed. I just didn't total it.
Now, this is a long lease we're committing the city to, 29 and a half years. Do we have the right to terminate at a cost?
Yeah, you can the city can terminate at any time by reimbursing the landlord for unamortized leasehold improvement and legal and various costs involved in the lease, but you can terminate and walk away.
Okay. Okay, good. That's good. That's a good model for us. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Atlas. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Steve, you made Councilmember Dom happy. I'm impressed.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Steve, stay on the phone. No, I'm kidding.
all important and critical questions to be asked, I believe, in our public hearings before we all decide, how things are going to move through the process. So thank you. Are there any other members of the committee to ask any questions or have any comments on bill number 210048? Anyone on the general public that is in attendance with us here today have any questions on bill number 210248? Councilman Jones, you cool? All right, great. Commissioner, thank you for your testimony. You may begin, again, state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony on bill number 210293.
Sure. Good morning, Chairperson Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property, and I'm here to testify in favor of bill number 210293, authorizing the Department of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into a lease amendment with Chestnut Street Realty Limited Partnership, LP, for a portion of the premises located at 1327 to 29 Chestnut Street under certain terms and conditions. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Department of Public Property and its Real Estate Advisory Services contractor, JLL, explored restructuring 3 sizable Center City office leases with the goal of receiving financial relief due to the loss of revenue and substantial budget deficit. The city has maintained partnership with these landlords for decades, and these partnerships have now strengthened even further with their enthusiasm to help the city during such a difficult time. Extending these 3 office leases will provide almost $10.1 million in total incentives. Incentives will include rent abatements, capital improvements, and commission rebates. City of Philadelphia's Office of the DA has been located at 1327 Chestnut Street since 2005. Ideally located across the street from City Hall, the building offers unique amenities such as advanced 24/7 security and a private entrance exclusive to the Office of the DA. The proposed Second Amendment would include approximately $5.9 million in total incentives. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill number 210293. I am requesting a suspension of all rules to allow for the first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your testimony. Quick question: is this lease? Is it strictly and solely for the district attorney office, or do we have any other city offices that are being leased out at this property?
At this location, it's just the DA's office.
How many floors?
We have 3. I do not know off the top of my head how many floors we have there now. Maybe 3.
And again, what's the term of the lease?
So it would go till December 2032. So we added on to already a long-term lease.
And is it consistent with the current lease?
What do you like? The amount of here I have the information. It's 43% of the property. What was that? I'm sorry.
Aside from the value increasing, like you said, 3% approximately, 2.7 rentable square feet. Is that everything is consistent? Anything change other than the dollar values of the?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I wasn't following that. No. So we are leasing. Yeah, we're leasing 43% of the property, so 203,000 square feet. Sorry, I had it on the back of my thing here.
And historically, public property and/or our general fund negotiates the lease for the district attorney's office. District attorney's office, and their budget is not accountable for any kind of capital improvements and or leasing terms.
No, the Department of Public Property has historically done that through the district attorney's office.
Okay, and that's similar with other independent elected offices in the city of Philadelphia? Yeah,
like for instance, like a council district office. Yeah, we would negotiate that. Anything that like the sheriff's office, anything like that, the Department of Public Property.
Okay,
is the lead. Mm-hmm.
Chair recognizes Councilmember Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. I just have a few quick questions. Because we're in such uncertain times, can we look at the option going forward of putting in termination clauses that are, with some sort of small cost on the city's part, just because we really don't know what's going to happen in 5 to 15 years with this changing economy. And on this particular lease, is there that option to terminate at any point?
So on most of our leases, we do have that option. We do build that into the lease. It's usually a 4-year out. So most of our leases do contain that language. Recently, we have been also adding the language, as Steve just referred to in the last lease, where if a landlord is putting out X amount of dollars for a tenant fit out for us, and we were to terminate that lease, we would just pay off that amount and then can terminate. So so we have a 4-year out clause though in most of our leases.
And I guess what you're saying, Commissioner, on this particular lease, this is one of 3 leases. It looks like we renegotiated with landlords and extended our leases in exchange for 3 months rent over the course of the term. That's the $10 million savings roughly. Is that correct?
Yes, free rent and some free work letter. So tenant improvement money as well as free rent.
And I'm assuming that landlords gave us that because they're uncertain also as to what's going on.
I would imagine, yeah.
So I'm just saying, for going forward, because we really don't know what the next year, 2 or 3 are going to bring. No, this is a very unusual time, in my opinion. I just want to make sure we have real good flexibility, that we don't commit the city to leases that are, not going to be utilized down the road if we see a different type of work environment. That's my concern. Anyway, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Member. Any other members of the committee have any questions on Bill number 210293? Anyone from the general public that is in attendance with us here this morning have any questions for 210293? All right, being none, Commissioner. Thank you for your testimony. You may proceed with your testimony on bill number 210424.
Good morning, Chair Member Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property, and I'm here to testify in favor of Bill Number 210424, authorizing the Department of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into a sublease amendment with the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development for a portion of the premises located at 1101 Market Street under certain terms and conditions. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Department of Public Property and its Real Estate Advisory Services contractor, JLL, explored restructuring 3 sizable Center City office leases with the goal of receiving financial relief due to the loss of revenue and substantial budget deficit. The city has maintained partnership with these landlords for decades, and these partnerships have now strengthened even further with their enthusiasm to help the city during such a difficult time. Extending these 3 office leases will provide almost $10.1 million in total incentives. Incentives will include rent abatements, capital improvements, and commission rebates. City departments have been located at 1101 Market since 1982. The building offers a prime location close to most city office locations, and the lobby was recently renovated. The proposed 6th Amendment would extend the term by 1 year. The proposed 6th Amendment would include approximately $1.3 million in total incentives. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill Number 210424. I'm requesting a suspension of all rules to allow for the first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this location, we're renewing three offices. Is that correct? If I read that,
This is just for 1101. What I put in the testimony was all 3 leases because the savings went over all 3. We call them the big 3. So that's in there. But the test for 1101, we're just extending 1 year.
right? And we have been in there for many years. And my understanding, since our last lease renewal, there's been significant improvements to the space. So that being said, is there any questions from any other members of council on bill number 210424? Anyone here who has joined us and in his attendance in this hearing wish to speak to bill number 210424? Being none, thank you for your testimony. Commissioner, you may state your name for the record and proceed with the testimony for bill number 210450.
Great. Good morning, Chair Member Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property. I'm here to testify in favor of bill number 210450, authorizing the Department of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into a lease amendment with the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, SEPTA, for a portion of the premises located at 1234 Market under certain terms and conditions. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Public Property and its Real Estate Advisory Services contractor, JLL, explored restructuring 3 sizable Center City office leases with the goal of receiving financial relief due to the loss of revenue and substantial budget deficit. The city has maintained partnerships with these landlords for decades, and these partnerships have now strengthened even further with their enthusiasm to help the city during such a difficult time. Extending these 3 office leases will provide almost $10.1 million in total incentives. Incentives will include rent abatements, capital improvements, and commission rebates. The City of Philadelphia's Office of Innovation and Technology has a 24/7 central data center located at 1234 Market. The building offers the electrical power required by the data center to host a broad range of systems and applications on multiple platforms. The building offers a prime location close to most city office locations. The proposed 6th Amendment would include approximately $2.6 million in total incentives. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve bill number 210450. I'm requesting a suspension of all rules to allow for the first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. it seems like are we being proactive with renegotiating or new terms for these subleases in some of our long-term leases that we have with public property, or were they up?
No, we were proactive. So in the beginning of the pandemic, when the budget, the budget had that deficit, I think 756 million, I believe. We worked actually with Councilman Dom's office, saying how can we save some money for the city off the front end, you know what I mean, and renegotiate some of these leases, take on a little bit more term and get some savings. So we proactively reached out to every lease holder, every lease that we had, every landlord that we had, I'm sorry. But what we decided on were the three main leases where we didn't really see a lot of movement happening in the near future. And then we have the rest of the leases to look at with potential savings there.
Right, and I think
yes, that was a long-winded answer to yes, we were proactive.
I think that's to the cities and to the credit and Councilman Don's, always looking ahead for long term. I think it's certainly in our best interest, especially with the three long-term leases that we do have, and we know that are not going to move. All right. I mean, I think there's a level of predictability now and comfort, I think, from the landlord and us, the leasee. So, nice job with that. Chair recognizes Councilmember Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner, good job on this, by the way. I just have one question. 1234 Market. I just want to make sure these three big leases, they're all coterminous, all expire at the same time.
They're all expiring at the same time. Is that what you asked?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So
yes.
At some point in time, they expire in 2032, probably in 2028, 2029. I won't be here, but we should put it down. Start thinking about what's the best plan for the city at that point.
Exactly. And if you recall, we did a consolidation plan pre-pandemic that we were moving towards. So this gives us a little time to work out the details on that and see where we wind up. But that's exactly right. Probably about 2028, we would start looking at, or somebody will start looking at what's going on, what we should do in the future, and then we'll have that time where everything will hit at the same time to actually be able to make a really strategic decision.
Okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Council Member. Is there anyone else on the committee that wishes to have any comments or questions on bill number 210450? Anyone else here that is in attendance with us in our public hearing wishes to have any comments or questions regarding bill number 210450? I see none. Commissioner, thank you for your testimony on the bills that you brought here today and gave testimony. So we will now move to bill number 200677. Mr. Purcell, would you please call our witness for that bill?
Dawn Somerville.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Heen and the members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Dawn Somerville, and I am the Deputy Commerce Director of the Department of Commerce. I am here to testify in favor of Bill 200677, authorizing the city to acquire an easement connecting 11th Street with 12th Street, parallel and just north of Chestnut Street, and an easement from the middle of the 1100 block of Chestnut Street northward to the east-west easement. The east-west easement is in the area where Clover Street once existed many years ago. The east-west easement would be 40 feet wide and allow for both cars and pedestrians to traverse this section. The north-south easement connecting Chestnut Street with the east-west easement would be 30 feet wide and only accessible by pedestrians. Currently, this area is private property and can be closed off by the owner permanently. These easements will encourage redevelopment of this site into smaller sections, allowing greater connectivity and a better, smaller scale pedestrian experience already successfully achieved in the first phase of the East Market development on the south side of Market Street, 11th and 12th Streets. The final phase of this $1 billion East Market project includes the construction of the $762 million specialty care pavilion for Jefferson Health and a plaza scheduled for completion in 2024. Critical to this project is the reconstruction of the former Clover Street from 11th to 12th Street and the continuation and completion of Chestnut Walk, the pedestrian walkway that connects Market to Chestnut Street. These two features, which will be dedicated in the form of an easement to the city, will ensure the open and public accessibility to the entirety of the development. The easement areas will be improved by new roadways, sidewalks, pavers, lighting, and landscape, providing public access to the new retail and connecting with the vibrant retail already created by the previous phase of the East Market development. The city is proposing to commit up to $6 million in city capital for the purchase of this easement, including $500,000 authorized in the FY21 capital budget and $2 million being proposed in the FY22 capital budget. Additional capital funding will be requested in the following 2 fiscal years. These easement areas also ensure that all of the $6 million of city capital is spent on infrastructure that is open to and benefiting the public and meets the public purpose test of the city's capital bonds. The project developer has entered into an economic opportunity plan with the Office of Economic Opportunity and is committed to meeting the goals established for minority-owned and women-owned businesses. To date, the project has adhered to the goals established in both of the city's EOPs and Jefferson's policy, and all goals have been met or exceeded regarding workforce and business utilization. I ask that you move Bill 200677 out of committee with a favorable recommendation and that you suspend the rules of council to allow first reading at the next meeting of council. I'm happy to answer questions at this time.
Thank you for your testimony, Deputy Director. We appreciate that. I understand, how important and exciting these easements are. And, I'm certainly, I think it's going to be the connector, right, for a whole lot of commerce and people and patients and activity down there, which I support, by the way. Who are we entering the lease with or easement with? Who are we contracting with at the end of the day?
The developer is National Real Estate Development, and Commissioner Greenwald, I don't know if anyone from our law department is on with us this morning to address that. I'm not hearing any. The developer is National Real Estate Development, and again, Councilman Heenan, I'm sure that that is correct. There's no one else on the deal on that bill with us.
Okay. I figured it would have to be, and I'm very familiar with the national the national developer investor that you discuss. They're helping revitalize the incredible corridor of Market Street East right there. So I was just curious to see who we will be authorizing to enter in an easement agreement with and the terms of that. So I guess we'll get to that in a future date. Chair recognizes Councilmember Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Deputy Commissioner. I have a question on the. It says in the information we're committing up to $6 million to purchase the easement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And do we have an appraisal of this?
We can get that for you, Councilman Dom. I don't have the appraisal in front of me. We have done deals like this previously and also for the first half of this project. I can get that from we can get that and get back to you.
Yeah, I would like to see the appraisals. I know this body passed a law requiring appraisals of any purchase or sales of real estate, just so we have it backed up. And
Absolutely.
the other question, does this easement that we're buying, does this help the development?
It absolutely helps the development, and I would say, as you're well aware of that area, Councilman Dom, and Market East has been an area, in my opinion, that has not been afforded attention as it should in previous years. And what National has done there is definitely changed the trajectory of that area, as well as it will be open to pedestrians, as we discussed. And yes, it does help the connectivity and helps bring energy and activation to that site.
Right. And this has to be like a multi-million-dollar type development, I would assume, right? That whole Market East development?
The total, yeah, this portion that we're talking about now is $1 billion. So yes, it is a very significant investment that National and Jefferson are doing in that area.
Okay. And I guess my question is that this easement, is this going to become a street for the city of Philadelphia to maintain? Is that what this is occurring here?
In the agreement, again, I don't have anyone from law on with me, but I know that is something that's done with the developers. We worked that out in the agreement after this committee approves, hopefully, that we forward. That will be worked out in the agreement, and we can circle back on that. But normally it's with the developers and the city come to an understanding of who maintains that area. But it's a walkway that would connect from Market Street into Chestnut Street with stores and retail in between.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand, they're doing $1 billion development and they're charging the city $6 million to create a street basically that'll help their development.
Yes, as I stated before, Councilman Dom, the city has done agreements like this previously, and we'll be happy to circle back with you to give you more detail about the agreement.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Deputy Director, this is Councilman Heenan. If you could, provide some of that, that information to me, and I will make sure it gets circulated. And coming through public property for years, today's bill, we need to, by virtue of our charter, we need to authorize, departments to enter into agreements. And with the new transformed and soon to be over the next several years transformation of Market East, these easements, all right, we're creating these easements, all right, for our people to use as public easements and right of ways, so they can move around safely as to being private development. So they are, Councilmember Dom, critical. I know it's a good question to say that somebody who's investing in $1 billion, maybe $2 billion over the next 15 years, but we're transforming an entire section of our city for newcomers, for visitors, for recreation, to have these public easements. And that's what exactly they are. They're public easements as connectors. So it is extremely important for these easements, for this type of development. At the same time, I look forward to Madam Director to receiving some of the information as requested by Councilmember Dom.
Absolutely, thank you, Chairman Heenan.
Any other members wish to have any questions, comments, or concerns over bill number 210281? Anyone?
Councilman Heenan, this is Mark Squilla.
Councilman Squilla, it's your district, your bill.
Yes, I just want to add two things too. Is as we were doing this, as a request from the city was to make it a more walkable project, and worked with the developer to come up with a way to connect both Market to Chestnut Street and keep that connection ongoing instead of having a dead end. So we as a city also were requesting that to make this happen in this development, and the developer did have to, make some modifications in order to make that happen. So it's a understanding that it benefits the development, but it also benefits the city greatly to be able to have this. And as we work on a deal with the city and the developer for maintenance, we'll make sure that all that information is disseminated to the chair and to the members of the committee.
Thank you, Councilman. And the rate of return, I think, is not measurable. With the amount of connection that it creates. I'm glad the city was proactive about that and saw that the need for it to be divided up a little bit, when not necessarily development, but the ability for people to walk around, move around, to utilize and to create these spaces to service an entirely new, transformed neighborhood. So thank you for that. Chair recognizes Councilmember Dom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Squilla, thank you for that. That does make a difference that the city requested it. So now I understand it a lot better. So thank you for that clarification. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it really does. You're right, Councilmember Dom. The city, taking in consideration its planning and development and commerce. This is exactly what we hope to expect the city to be engaging in and be proactive with. So, any other member have any questions on bill number 210281? Councilmember Squilla, thank you for your comments, and there were no one else from the general public for bill number 210281. We will now move on to our next bill. Mr. Purcell, can you call the witness for bill number 210282?
I'm sorry, Councilman, it's 210281, correct?
Is that, okay. All right. So we were still on the 677. All right. So my apologies. So anyone here to testify? You read who's testifying for bill number 210281.
All right, thank you. It's Laura Copeland.
Good morning, Chairman Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. I am Laura Copeland, Assistant Deputy Commissioner for Education, Community Engagement, and Government Affairs for the Philadelphia Water Department. Also here are my colleagues, Elizabeth Lankenau, Vahe Hovsepian, Christopher Anderson, and Michael Olivier. I'm here to testify on behalf of Bill number 210281, which authorizes the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to acquire fee simple title or a lesser real estate interest from Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to all or a portion of a parcel or parcels of land bordered by Richmond Street to the north-northwest, Wheatsheaf Lane to the east-northeast, I-95 to the west, and the Northeast Treatment Plant to the south-southeast for water treatment or supply purposes or other purposes under certain terms and conditions. In 2011, the City of Philadelphia signed a consent order and agreement with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. This agreement requires the city to reduce overflows from its combined sewer system. A major step in achieving compliance is the construction of a new facility at PWD's Northeast Water Pollution Control Plant. This new facility, termed New Preliminary Treatment Building, will expand the plant's preliminary treatment capacity by 215 million gallons daily. This will allow PWD to treat a greater volume of combined sewage, significantly reducing the frequency of combined sewer overflow discharges in the city. The parcel in question, which has no structures on it, lies directly adjacent to the plant's current fence line. Acquiring this property provides PWD the needed space for expansion and will allow the department to do so in a minimally disruptive way to the surrounding community. This project is shovel-ready and is underwritten by state and federal funding. The Water Department respectfully requests that this bill be reported favorably out of committee and that the rules of council be suspended to allow for first reading of this bill at the next session of City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today and am happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Appreciate your testimony, and this is a bill that I introduced that is in my district. The land has that is in question for acquisition for this type of use has real no value, right? There's nothing contiguous with it, all right, but it is extremely important for the Water Department's mission here to better serve our residents and making sure that we are environmentally safe, friendly, and it is being utilized in the most productive and safe way to accomplish what we need to as a water department in the city. So thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes Councilmember Dom. Councilmember Dom, you have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'm good. No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What year was it? And if you don't know, please just provide it to the chair to distribute to members. The year that the EPA sued us about our combined sewer lateral overflow.
I don't have that information in front of me, but I can certainly get back to you.
And this has nothing to do. I support the bill, Mr. Chairman, but it was fascinating that the Water Department had to take that on, and the number of projects that they were able to fund to satisfy the EPA's directive. And for those who don't know, whenever we had a major rain event, the same water that came out of our sewer systems was going into our streams, and it wasn't pretty. So we appreciate what the Water Department is doing to correct that environmental hazard. I would like to know, since that directive from the EPA, a list of all of the good things that have been accomplished, including bioretention basins around the city. Do you happen to know? We had a plan for 1,000 bioretention basins. How have we done to satisfy that goal and objective?
So I don't have that information in front of me, but I know we've been doing some good things. I can definitely get back to you with that.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that they provide that to you. I just know that I was a former transportation and utilities guy within council, and that plan was underway back in 2009, and so I would be interested to see how we've progressed since then.
Thank you for bringing that up, Councilmember Jones. And I started serving sworn in 2012, and I remember us frantically and with a lot of skepticism, all right, but we were mandated by the federal government with the Clean Water Act, all right, to come up with new storm water rates because of that. Baltimore was sued over 10 years ago, and the price for the combined water sewer separation was that was about $8 billion that it cost, I believe, Baltimore. We, at the time, under Mayor Nutter and our Stormwater Rate Board, having different community meetings, came up with a rate, all right, that you see on our bills now, and it caused a lot of it caused a lot of concerns, especially in the manufacturing area with square footage, because flat roofs, stormwater was, the increase went high to try to mitigate the combined sewer and stormwater runoff. So we decided, or the mayor decided, to do its, I don't remember the program. It could be like the Grown Greener 35 plan, which reduced, let's just say it would have cost $8 billion to separate the combined water sewer, which we do when we have breaks and when we get into and open up, we separate it. But we come up with the greening projects throughout the city, which had it was billions of dollars less, which gave us national accreditation and recognition for being a greener city as a result of it. So the water department, as your memory is very good, has been proactive, trying to do it on a cost-effective schedule, making our city greener, all right, with a lot of these infrastructure mandates and setbacks and developer kind of I guess agreements that where you need to have a stormwater plan. All right, so that is all in effect. So if you say like 2012, maybe at the end of 2012 or during 2012, the beginning of 2013, it was at the end of a 5-year mandate from our federal government with the Federal Clean Water Act. So I'm going to say roughly 97. All right, we just waited until the last year or two to do it. It could have been 97 or a little before the federal government asked all municipalities and states to come in compliance with its federal law. But it's a great question to see what metrics we have taken and what the outcomes have been and what our savings are. So I would be interested in that, Deputy Commissioner, to see what how we have fared over the past almost 10 years with the implementation of our stormwater management.
Absolutely, I can provide that information. And I think you might be referring to our Green City Clean Waters program. We're entering our 10th year.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Councilman Jones, how's that for a memory?
Telling you, man, seniority matters. Seniority matters.
Yeah.
We remember.
It does. All right. Well, thank you for that. Do we have any other questions from members of the committee on bill number 210281? Is there anyone from the general public or has joined us here in our public hearing on bill number 210281? That being none, thank you so much. Thank you for your testimony, Deputy Commissioner. We will now move on to bill number 210282. Mr. Brazell, would you please read who's testifying on that bill?
Robert Armstrong.
Good morning, Robert. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Member Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Rob Armstrong, and I'm the Trails and Transportation Program Manager for the Office of Transportation Infrastructure and Sustainability. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill number 210282, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the city to acquire fee simple title or a lesser interest in real estate by purchase, dedication, donation, condemnation, agreement in lieu of condemnation, or otherwise in parcels of land along the Delaware River for the purposes of designing and constructing the Tacony-Holmesburg Trail. This bill allows the City of Philadelphia to continue to acquire right-of-way along the Delaware River for an expansion of recreational parkland consisting primarily of the proposed Tacony-Holmesburg Trail a multi-use recreational trail, and associated amenities. Upon completion of construction, the right-of-way will be operated and maintained by Philadelphia Parks and Recreation, along with its nonprofit partner, the Riverfront North Partnership. The proposed right-of-way runs along the Delaware River between the Tacony Boat Launch, a public boat facility located at Princeton Avenue in the Delaware River, to the Pennypack on the Delaware, a public park which serves to connect the public to public parks and trails along the North Delaware Greenway, including to the Kensington and Tacony Trail and Lardner's Point Park. The proposed right-of-way is also part of the larger regional circuit trail system and the National East Coast Greenway. Councilmember Heenan, in whose district this parcel resides, supports this legislation. The Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability fully supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully request that City Council approve Bill number 210282. I'm also requesting a suspension of the rules so as to allow for first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have regarding this ordinance.
Thank you for your testimony, and I'm going to ask you to stay in the hearing for our next bill that you can give testimony on. Again, regarding our parks and trails, and nobody knows more than a couple of the members of Parks and Trails and our connectors in our greenways than a couple of members that we have in our hearing today, and that's Councilmember Jones. With his trail system out on his side of the city, connecting Montgomery County, connecting the Schuylkill River trails, connecting, down to our south of the city with Councilmember Squilla, and, the trail moving up north to mine, which we both border our Delaware River and also connector with Pennypack, Frankfort, and Tacony Creeks. So our trails are important. Councilmember Jones, tried to convince several of us members to go on a bike ride, which I respectfully declined. But because I was busy, trailing up and on the north end of our city. But it is important. We have Father's Day coming up, and every Father's Day, I'm going to just say a little personal note. I try to go fishing with my kids as a tradition, and the Tacony boat launch there. Ramp is one of those places where I drop a rod in and get snagged many times, and hopefully not get, which we call in the fishing industry, right, in the business there of sporting, skunked. All right, I want to catch at least something. But these trails and access to our waterways are important, and they help provide these memories. So I thank you. Is there anyone else here who wishes, members of the committee that wishes to speak on bill number 210282? Anyone joining us here today from the general public wish to speak on 210282? All right, that being said, Mr. Armstrong, could you provide testimony on bill number 210444 while you were up?
Yes, 1 second.
To our clerk, I know I'm going out of order, but it kind of makes sense to keep Mr. Armstrong in the testimony chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman.
Are you ready?
You may state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Robert Armstrong. Good morning, Chair, Member Heenan, and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Robert Armstrong, and I'm the Trails and Transportation Program Manager for the Office of Transportation Infrastructure and Sustainability. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill number 210444, authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the city to acquire fee simple title or a lesser interest in real estate by purchase, dedication, donation, condemnation, agreement in lieu of condemnation, or otherwise in parcels of land connecting Tacony Street to the Frankfort Arsenal boat launch for public recreational purposes under certain terms and conditions. The bill allows the City of Philadelphia to acquire right-of-way for an expansion of recreational parkland consisting of a side path from Tacony Street to the Frankfort boat launch. Upon completion of construction, the right-of-way will be operated and maintained by Philadelphia Parks and Recreation, along with its nonprofit partner, the Riverfront North Partnership. The proposed right-of-way runs along the Delaware Avenue extension between Tacony Street and a public boat facility at the Frankfurt Boat Launch and the K&T Trail, part of the larger East Coast Greenway. The Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability fully supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully request that City Council approve Bill number 210444. I'm also requesting a suspension of the rules so as to allow for first reading at the next section of the council. Thank you. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have regarding this proposed ordinance.
Thank you, Rob, for your testimony. I'm not going to repeat much of what I had said on the previous bill, but I am going to ask questions on both bills if you can, which was not mentioned for bill number 210444, or well, I will ask on 444, but 282. Do we have an idea of land costs or value for any kind of acquisition for both for 282 and 444?
For 282, we do not have values associated. We will begin the right-of-way acquisition process, which would include the appraisal process after the passage of the bill.
Okay.
And then for 444, there's no cost associated with that project.
So 282, simply authorizes the permission to proceed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And when we get to that, when the law department signs off and it's parties execute it, would you report back to myself so I can inform our members on the associated costs that are involved with the land and the acquisition?
Absolutely, council member.
Okay, you're great. Any members of council have anything regarding bill number 210444? Is there anyone here who has joined us in our hearing for bill number 210444? That being none, thank you for your testimony. Clerk, would you please read the who's testifying on bill number 210418?
Elizabeth Lankenau.
Good morning, Chairman Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Elizabeth Lankenau, and I'm the Director of Infrastructure Program Coordination at the Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability. I am here today to testify in support of Bill number 210418, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to convey to the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation a parcel of land bounded on the east by Bath Street, on the north by East Venango Street, on the west by I-95, and on the south by East Kingston Street under certain terms and conditions. This property will be sold to PennDOT to allow for, 1, the addition of a northbound off-ramp to Castor Avenue to replace the existing off-ramp at Westmoreland Street. 2, the addition of a southbound auxiliary lane between the Betsy Ross Bridge on-ramp and Allegheny Avenue. 3, widening median shoulders to a standard width. 4, widening outside shoulders to a standard width. And 5, for stormwater management. The proceeds from the sale will be deposited into the general fund. The Department of Public Property and the Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability support this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that Council approve Bill number 210418. I am requesting a suspension of the rules so as to allow for first reading at the next Council session. Thank you, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Madam Director, for your testimony. I'm just going to stay in line with some of the questions that we always ask and that will be asked with our committee with the associated costs. Have you gotten any preliminary appraisals for any of the acquisitions here?
Yes, for this bill we had 2 appraisals and a negotiated price between PennDOT and Public Property for $100,000.
And that is in total for the 2 parcels?
This is just for Bill 210418.
Okay. All right, and put this in context for members of the committee, this is a part of a major PennDOT series of circuits when it comes to our highways. We're talking about the on ramps and off ramps. It's a huge undertaking. So this is just one piece of a larger pie that you can see when it comes to PennDOT 95 connectors. From the Betsy Ross Bridge on and off ramps, which is also connecting to our neighborhoods and related businesses. So this, when completed, will hopefully we won't be doing anything for another 50 years in this area, but there is a lot going on with logistics and roads and bridges in this immediate area. So thank you for your testimony. Any members of the committee have any questions for bill number 210418? Anyone here joining us have any questions or like to speak on bill number 210418? Madam Director, thank you for your testimony. Clerk, we will now move on to our last bill, 210419. Madam Director, please state your name again for the record, and you may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Lankenow, and I am the Director of Infrastructure Program Coordination at the Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability. I am here today to testify in support of bill number 210419, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to grant the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation a temporary construction easement on a portion of the parcel or parcels of land in and about the area bounded by Richmond Street, East Butler Street, I-95, and Castor Avenue, commonly known as 3721 Richmond Street, under certain terms and conditions. This area was intended for stormwater management purposes. However, it has since been determined that soil quality makes the land a poor candidate for this use. Through its community engagement process, PennDOT committed to repaving, milling, and striping this parking lot, which will occur after the reconstruction of Castor Avenue. The proceeds from the temporary construction easement will be deposited into the general fund. The Department of Public Property and the Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability support this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill 210419. I am requesting a suspension of the rules so as to allow for first reading at the next session of council. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director. Again, question is, do you have estimated costs on the proceeds for the property?
So in this case, no appraisal was offered. This order was prepared. It was a temporary construction easement. That will be bearing the cost of the paving and restriping and improvements of the lot. However, it's also offered $96,500, which streets determined would be enough to make any other improvements to lighting, for example, on the site that may be needed.
Great, thank you. Any members of the committee questions for bill number 210419? Joining here today in our hearing that has any questions, comments, or concerns on bill number 210419? That being none, Madam Director, thank you for your time and money. We appreciate it. At this point, we will conclude the hearing and go into our public meeting. There being no further questions from members of the committee and no other witnesses to testify, I will ask, is there anyone else here present in this hearing whose name I have not called or failed to call and that wishes to offer any testimony whatsoever on any of the bills that we are considering today? Hearing none, I want to thank all the panelists and witnesses for their participation here today, and those who were ready and available for any questions that we have, because this committee has very smart and complicated questions. We value your opinions, and now I invite all panelists and witnesses to please disconnect from this meeting before we go into our public meeting. We will now pause the proceeding briefly as multiple participants leave the hearing. So we're asking all the panelists, everybody who testified, all those who were here to answer any kind of supportive and technical questions on the legislation that they had interest in, to please disconnect so we can proceed with our public meeting. Mr. Brazel, when you see that folks are disconnected, why don't you let me know, and then we'll move forward.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will. Mr. Chairman, it appears the other members have left that are going to not stay for the public meeting.
Can you repeat that?
It appears we are ready to go to our public meeting now.
That's all I need to know. Okay. Well, this concludes the public hearing of the committee. We will now go into our public meeting to consider the actions to be taken on the bills before this committee today. We will now convene the public meeting. Mr. Brazel, would you please call the roll to take attendance of the members that are in attendance? Would you please indicate that you are present? When your name is called, also please say a few brief words in response so that your image will be displayed on the screen when you do speak. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Mark Squilla.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Present.
Councilmember Jamie Gautier. Councilmember Helen Gim. Councilmember David O. Councilmember Alan Dom.
Present, Mr. Chair.
Before we make any motions, Councilmember Dom, is there anything you want to state for the record before we proceed? Once motions are in play, all discussions and debate will end. So I'm going to give you the opportunity now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have some concerns about that lease that we talked about on Roosevelt Boulevard. And my concerns are really around the termination options. But I do think in the next 16 years, the way we vote is going to change. I'm just not sure, what our needs will be. I just would like to see some sort of way that we can exit that space if we find we don't need it. Who knows where we're going to go? Look how technology has changed the world in the last 5 years. And that's my concern on that lease, because that's a $28 million commitment over 16 years. And if you look at the lease closely, it appears to me the rents ratchet up dramatically over the later years. So the last year was, I think, $2.2 million. So that's a concern. It's like I feel like we're committing the city to something that is maybe inexpensive in the first few years, but they're going to pay the heavy price in the later years.
And we certainly hear your concern. Maybe there's, so we're going to proceed as introduced, but maybe as chair of public property, I can reconvene a meeting with the administration and our commissioners to discuss that a little more in depth. I think we've heard a lot with several of our pieces of legislation today regarding the market's hot, right? And everybody's buying things up. We certainly don't want to leave the city at any kind of disadvantage. So I appreciate you looking out for that, and I will commit to putting something together to address these concerns. Right after this budget process, that we have to go through at the end of the month, if that's okay with you.
Okay, and I will say this: I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming Concordius or whoever. But I do think that going forward, that our consultants that work on our behalf should be compensated based on the savings versus the volume of the lease based on a commission amount. It's almost the reverse in helping us. So we should really be structured forward, consultants and our negotiations, that when people represent the city, they get a bigger benefit when they save the city money versus getting a bigger benefit when it costs the city money.
I understand, especially in a hot market. I guess that's one of their benefits, right? They're a beneficiary of on the lease pricing over the term of the deal, right? I mean, that's what it seems to be common here. The lease ends October 31st, the temporary lease. To answer your question that you asked earlier today, we just got, this morning, just to give you a little feedback on that.
I will say this, and we talked about this before. What we've done here is create a tremendous opportunity and value by the lease we're placing on this piece of real estate. And not this particular transaction, but just in general, we as a city should probably be looking at these and saying, wait a second, if we're going to commit $28 million to rental payments in the next 16 years, maybe there's a better way to do this than just leasing.
Understand.
Yeah.
I understand. So, I mean, these are, I guess, unintended consequences, right? I mean, just, we were talking about earlier with Councilmember Jones, there are winners and losers, when it came to our storm water rate increase, with our federal mandates, and, environmental concerns, which are not just reasonable, but expected, to keep people safe and our waters clean and our streams and tributaries in the condition that they expect. So there are winners and losers and unintended consequences as a result of, I guess, markets and time. So you raise extremely valid concerns. So we should take a look at that. Chair recognizes Councilmember Jones.
I just wanted to be recorded, Mr. Chairman, as present when we took our second roll call. My name was inadvertently skipped.
Duly noted, and I also want to note for the record as well that we are that Councilmember Helen Ginn is also present. Had a similar technical difficulty, but it looks like we have more than a quorum and just about a full committee. So I want to thank you all for your participation today. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on the amendment to Bill number 200662.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to Bill number 200662, and a copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to Bill number 200662 be approved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second by Councilmember Jones. It has been moved and properly that Bill number 200662, the amendment for Bill number 200662 be approved. All those in favor signify of the motion would signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion carries.
Councilman,
Amendment.
I wanted to be recorded as nay for one reason. I'm looking for a termination option in this lease.
Let the record reflect that Councilmember Dom votes nay on the amendment to Bill number 200662. We go back to the ayes have it on the motion, and the motion for the amendment to Bill number 200662 has been approved. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion to Bill number 210. Give me 1 second here.
200662.
Yeah. You know what? It looks like we're doing all the amendments first. So we're gonna go to bill number. You got an amendment for 210331, Councilman Squilla?
I'll just 331.
You know what?
I'll
You know what? Hold on for a second. This thing's
you want to do this bill as amended and then go through?
No. It's my apology. You know, I'm out of order here. Councilman Squilla, I want to recognize Councilman Squilla for a motion. Move bill number 200662 as amended. Make the motion to move the bill out of committee as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 200662 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded by Councilmember Jones. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it. Bill number 200662 as amended has been reported out of this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be submitted as to permit this bill at our next session of council. Chair recognizes Councilman Squill on a motion to bill number 200677.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 200677 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record by Councilmember Jones. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Bill number 200677 has been reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. Chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla on a motion to bill number 210076.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the bill number 210076 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record by Councilmember Jones that bill number 210076 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading at our next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 The motion carries. Chair now recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion to bill number 210248.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 210248 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record by Councilmember Jones that bill number 210248 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on bill number 210248.
Mr. Chair, did we just do 248? I think
we probably did, sir.
maybe we'll move down to
this script is going to have some issues.
281, I think.
We are on. Was it 281?
281, yes.
Okay, thank you. Chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla on the motion, bill number 210281.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 210281 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record by Councilmember Jones, and properly second that bill number 210281 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended. It is to permit the reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The chair now recognizes Councilman Squilla for motion on bill number 210282.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 210282 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record. Councilman Jones on the second. It has been moved and properly second that bill number 210282 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. The chair now recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion of bill number 210293.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 210293 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second that bill number 210293 be moved and reported out of this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The chair now recognizes Councilman Squill for a motion on bill number 210418.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 210418 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record by Councilman Jones that bill number 210418 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chair recognizes Councilmember Squill on the motion of bill number 210419.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 210419 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record by Councilmember Jones that bill number 210419 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion of bill number 210424.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 210424 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record by Councilmember Jones that bill number 210424 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilman Squill on a motion of bill number 210444.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the bill number 210444 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record of Councilmember Jones that bill number 210444 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on bill number 210450.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bill number 210450 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second for the record by Councilmember Jones that bill number 210450 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. I want to thank you all for this long and very informative as well as engaging public property meeting at this time. For the record, I want to wish everybody a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend. And this concludes the business before the Committee on Public Property and Public Works today. And again, thank you so much for your attendance. Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Engineer.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.